Tonight is totally okay to play favorites again. My favorite tone wood is mahogany. For this part of the thing, we're going to actually do all same body shape, which is going to be Grand Symphony. Mahogany, to me, guitar lives in the mid-range. That's where it is. And mahogany really accentuates the mid-range of the guitar. It has a lot of bloom in that mid-range. The notes kind of roll over each other. It just is a really lush, warm sound to it. It lives right in that mid-range. What 516 CE. This one does have Engelmann. They're both spruce tops. Now, strum that a couple times and we'll play the rosewood. What'd you guys hear?
Difference?
A little deeper? Okay. Yeah. What this does is, a lot of times people say it sounds more bass. There's more top end. And both are right. You hear more articulation, more top end. You hear more low end. And what that does, if you accentuate those two, it kind of scoops out those mids. And if you're a singer-songwriter, that's where your voice sits. So it creates a little pocket for your voice. A lot of singer-songwriters that play guitar also, I guess they would play guitar if we were talking about, not piano players. Like rosewood, and because of that, it just kind of has that full IMAX experience. You get full fidelity up here, nice big low end, and then that little pocket for their voice.
Yeah. Really nice balance too. It's like everything is so good for its its own type of guitar. It's like this is the best of that, and that's the best of this, and you just have to own more than one. How can you own one?
You know how many guitars you need, right? You know how many guitars we need as guitarists? One more.
One more. That's right.
Always. Cool. Now this is maple. Maple is, if you take all that top end, slide it up there, has it's much harder back and sides, so it's a much faster attack. Notes jump out of maple. It's like a laser beam cutting through the mix. If you're a band leader, one of my favorite guitarists is David Gilmour, and when you go to a David Gilmour concert, chances are you're not there to see the drummer or the bass player. You're there to see David Gilmour. Even though those two guys are probably some of the best musicians on the planet, you want to hear David Gilmour in that concert. And he likes a 614 CE, and he has a blue one that he plays because it cuts right through the mix. It cuts through all the band behind him. So if you're a band leader, this is a great one because you're right out there in front and your band follows you.
just punch and then stops, you know, ready for the next note. This is a nice mic. This is nice speakers. This is a nice room. Nice crowd. Thank you.
Cool. Those are the three basic body shapes that or basic tone woods that we use. And the reason I start with those three is that's kind of the traditional guitar woods. And Taylor, fortunately for me, makes a lot of different guitars out of some strange woods or different woods. So we usually use those three as a comparison of to the other woods, or other woods compared to those three. And another part of the equation in tone is you have the body shapes, you have the tone woods, but you also have what your fingers sound like. At the factory we call it bone tone, but everybody's fingers sound a little bit different. If you have a real bright bone tone and you get on a maple, you might have too thin of a sound. But if you have a real meaty, warm bone tone, you get on a maple, all of a sudden that's the most prettiest guitar you've ever heard. Have you ever, been playing your favorite guitar and you put it in your friend's hand and it sounds horrible, or if it sounds amazing, way better than yours, if you guys are similar players? When I put it in Wayne's hands, it always sounds better. But sometimes that's just the bone tone. So it pays to experiment with everyone. I know there are certain woods that my fingers don't sound good on, but then you put it in a different player's hands and they sound amazing. So definitely experiment with that too. Now, comparative woods, or cool woods, or really ugly, horrible Hawaiian woods. This is koa. Koa that we use is very similar to mahogany and maple. It comes from the Big Island of Hawaii. It has a real lush mid-range of mahogany, but it almost jumps maple's top end and has a little sparkle on top, kind of like a little cartoon bird singing on your shoulder whenever you play it. But it grows only on the Big Island of Hawaii, only at 5,000 feet and above. So it's this tiny speck of the earth where this wood comes from. And if you get a concession to cut down some koa logs and your kids are going to college, you call Bob and say, I have some logs for you. Because one koa log can cost upwards of $250,000. And we write a check for it on that property, and then we get it to Pacific Northwest and use their saws we go up there and cut it all up to make guitars out of. And we don't know really what in the middle that log is going to be. We still wrote that check for it. So it has happened before that a couple logs were cut down in unseasonably wet monsoon kind of conditions. So the wood was soaking wet and then shipped to a freezing, cold, sleety Pacific Northwest, and everything froze, and we couldn't make guitars out of that because when we finished them, they had all these little cracks and stuff in them. So koa is one of the most expensive. At the factory before, we used to say at the factory before, now I'm totally blank on that movie. We used to call it unobtainium. And you guys would probably yell at the movie because I'm totally blank with the movie with the blue people that, Avatar, there it is. I totally was blank on that one. But yeah, we used to call it unobtainium because it is just that. It's this tiny speck of land, and it makes just a beautiful tone wood, beautiful looking, and it sounds amazing.
I was going to ask you before I finish, like the last couple, the neck on that maple GS, is it a little bit bigger, a little thicker?
It shouldn't be.
It feels a little fatter to me.
It's the finish maybe because it's gloss?
Maybe. But it definitely feels fatter than sometimes some of the tone. I like that guitar a lot. It really plays well.
Yeah, we sit up here too and play favorites, just so you know, each night.
Yeah.
What is the top on that one?
That's spruce, Sitka spruce. If you want to have a textbook definition of what Sitka spruce is supposed to look at, or look like, look at that guitar. I noticed that when the second night, I was like, oh, this is pretty. Yes. There's kind of two families of top woods, traditional. You have spruce and you have cedar, which cedar would include redwoods and stuff. The spruce is going to have the most dynamic range, the bounciest sounding. Sitka spruce is going to be real broad sounding. It ages really nice. It's very versatile sounding. Has a good ceiling, has good warmth to it. Engelmann's going to be a little more on the warmer side, and like Adirondack spruce is going to be more on the ceiling side, or brighter, little more top end. Adirondack takes a lot of breaking in. I have a little Adirondack guitar that if you pick it up, the first 10 minutes it sounds super tight and constricted, and then after about 10 minutes it just kind of loosens up and starts playing every time you pull out of the case. And hopefully in 50 years it's going to sound really good. No. Real loosely, any engineers in the audience? None? Yes, okay, I can use this analogy. No, we talk up here in really broad strokes and make as generalities as I can. What's really cool with Taylor is I can describe a tone wood, hand it to Wayne, and it usually sounds like that. In fact, we often do these road shows, pull out the guitars, never play them, tune them up, go. I describe it, put it in Wayne's hand, and it really, that's cool about Taylor, is the consistency of that. But if you take let's say, take a big circle, cut it in half, shape is half of that. Then cut it again in half, so you're left with a quarter. I'd say back and sides. Cut it in half again, you're left with an eighth is the top, and then there's all these other little things in there. So there's big, broad generalities. I do have cedar versus Engelmann on the 500. So this is the mahogany 516 with Engelmann spruce. This is a 516 from last year with cedar top. You hear it a little warmer, not as much top end. Yeah. And that's what. This, the spruces are better for strumming. You have a little more top end usually, where cedar's a little softer. So it cedar and redwoods are a little softer, so they vibrate a little easier, so less right hands. It also compresses stuff. It also kind of works really well with mahogany, that everything kind of warms up together. It sounds like an old guitar right out of the box. What we're talking about when you talk about redwood, it's old growth California redwood. Back when you could log them, they were cut down and used for any numerous things. How many people have ever seen the California redwoods?
How much does one of those cost?
California redwood, you can't buy them anymore. A real one, an old growth one. Actually you can buy, the sinker redwood it was 250 years ago when they used to log those suckers, or 150 years ago when they logged those guys. They'd log them, float them down the river, and some of them would sink to the bottom. And those logs that sat at the bottom for 150 years, after they're freshly cut, sat at near freezing water. So they're actually, it's actually preserved very well, but it sits at the bottom soaking up all these nutrients. I don't have a plain cedar, do we? Cedar color is right here in the middle, maybe a little more orange to it or reddish to it. Redwood is a little more red usually when you don't see it, but all these streaks and colors and everything you see in that are all the nutrients and muck and stuff that it soaked up in the bottom of those rivers. California redwoods are so big that it's illegal to pull these logs out of the river and make guitars out of them, because it can change the whole course of the river and flood this farmland, or this salmon spawning all that stuff. In California, we care about all that stuff. We're forced to care about all that stuff, I should say. No, it's funny. There's we as Taylor, we have a saying. There's ethical or there's legal logging or legal reasons we should do it, and there's ethical reasons. It's always something, we want to make sure we're doing things the right way. And Sinker Redwood is so pretty. In fact, the guy we're getting a lot of it from now. You want to play that?
Sure.
This is BTO or build to order model that Jay and I and Brandon kind of all put together, and it's build to order is, we make 150, 200 different models. If you can't find the exact model you want in those, we can build to order, use all the different combinations you want, have some special woods picked. Jay's been coming to road shows as long as I've been doing them, and since before I started at Taylor. And he always helps me. In fact, tonight, I think he tuned all these guitars, so if they're out of tune, it's Jay's fault. No. He tuned all these guitars, helped us load in, and we go to dinner afterwards, become a good friend. And so it's really fun to build guitars for people. It's one of my favorite things to do. So if you guys ever want to build a guitar, I'm totally into helping you figure out what you need. So
very little energy on my part to get the top to pull